Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brian Hartman coming to you live from Ferris Plaza in Port St. Lucie, Florida, 1859 Southeast Port St. Lucie Boulevard. We are a conglomerate, an ecosystem of different businesses that help other businesses expand, grow, be able to maximize their value, and then eventually we take them to market to hopefully be able to find them some buyers if they'd like to ride off into the sunset. Um, we do everything from financial management and bookkeeping to we do marketing, we do HR, including management training, payroll, PEO services, mentioned exit planning strategy. We do commercial and residential lending. We do personal and commercial lines of insurance. We do residential and commercial real estate. We even do medical practice management, billing, coding, and credentialing. To find out more, go to pharusglobal.com. Just add a .com to our Pharus Global, which you see in the top corner of this boob tube. Today we are in for a treat. We're going to be talking about exit planning for business owners and the strategies that go with that. We have joining us today Todd Bass, who's the Senior VP of Advanced Markets and Business Planning at the Center for Wealth Preservation, or better known as CWP, which is a Mass Mutual company. Todd practiced corporate law for 8.5 years and has both his CPA and Advanced Exit Planning designation, as well as his designation as a Certified Financial Modeler and Valuation Analyst. So we're going to find out more about what all those things mean. And without further ado, let's bring on Mr. Todd Bass.
Thanks for having me back, Ryan. If it's all right, I'll buy a vowel after all those letters.
Yeah, holy cow, man. Tell us a little bit about, why don't we start off there, man? Tell us a little bit about all those abbreviations that you got at the end of your name.
Yeah, so the JD is most commonly known for those who successfully completed the law school program. So I am a licensed and admitted attorney. The CPA is a certified exit planning advisor. And really what that focuses on is driving value into a business owner's privately owned business, right? And helping them position the business as best as possible so that whenever they do either make an inside or an outside transaction, right? Whether it be an intergenerational transfer or a sale to private equity, an ESOP, when they make some type of exit, the value of that business is maximized. They're not leaving any value behind on the table. The AEXP is actually something similar. They were given by two different institutes. The CPA is from EPI. The AEXP is from BEI. So, and for those of you who aren't familiar with either, EPI is the Exit Planning Institute. The BEI is the Business Exit Institute. So I'm one of a very select few that hold both designations. So I'm able to kind of give both perspectives on their different approaches. And the CFMVA is a designation from Corporate Finance Institute of America. And it just stands for Certified Financial Modeling and Valuation Analyst. So it gives us the background that we need to conduct a discounted cash flow model or figure out the net present value of what certain investments might be, value businesses. So we use that in conjunction with the CPA and the AXP and my legal background to advise business owners on what the best steps are to position the companies to be valued at the best possible valuation.
That's awesome. Wow, was that a mouthful though?
That's a mouthful. Yeah, that's a mouthful. If you say that enough times in the course of the day, it brands into the back of your brain.
Yeah, no kidding. So for those of you out there watching us live, if you'd like to ask Todd a question about everything he just went over or anything that comes up during our conversation, feel free to drop the question into the comments, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, and we'll be happy to answer those as they come up. In the middle of all of that, Todd, you had the actual time to get married too, didn't you?
I did. I somehow squeezed it in. My wife, who I call my private CEO, She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. My wife, Dominique, I love her. She's my reason for getting up and working and coming home and everything I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So she's got 3 letters at the end of her name too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bo.
She's got letters at the end of her name by association.
There you go. There you go. Well, very cool. And did you want to talk a little bit about CWP? Tell us, a little bit about what you're doing over there.
Yeah. So as you said before, CWP is it's a Mass Mutual company. It's an agency of Mass Mutual. We really provide a full spectrum of financial services. There are investment advising divisions. I am personally not a part of that, but they do provide investment advisement, insurance planning, estate planning services, and then we run the business planning division, as well as what we call the value acceleration division.
And how long have you been doing this now?
So all in all, I've been doing this type of work, this type of advisory work for just about 8.5 or 9 years now. It kind of started out as the corporate attorney advising on M&A transactions and helping my clients from a legal perspective reposition the companies properly so that they could maximize value when it came time to close the deal. But I had moved over into the financial advisory space a while back. And I've been working with private companies and privately held businesses, family-owned businesses, and family enterprises for a couple of years now. And it's something that I deeply enjoy. I'm passionate about. I find it interesting. And there's no one case that you work with or no one business owner that you're going to work with that's ever identical or similar to the other. So it's truly interesting to learn about what these business owners and these middle market companies do and how they were founded and how partnerships were formed. So I love what I do. So it's an interesting business. And at the end of the day, we're helping people, right? And the companies that we're helping, and by repositioning them and helping them with strategic initiatives to improve the value, we're also improving the lives of their employees, their management, because as the company benefits, so do the management and the rank and file employees through vehicles like employee benefits or stock option plans, or what we call phantom stock and stock appreciation rights. So it really is, it trickles down from the top down.
It's awesome. So talk to us a little bit about, the last time we had you on the show, we were in the middle of, or coming on the tail end, I guess you can say, of a boom in the economy. Are you starting to see some changes out there, and more people finding it more urgency to maximize value and get out at this point?
So since we last spoke, there's obviously been a change in the economic climate. Going back to 2020 in the height of the pandemic, private equity was flooding the market with this private capital because everyone was looking for alternative investments and ways to invest capital outside of the markets, right? They didn't want to be in the stock market. The bond market was questionable. So people in private equity firms, venture capital groups were investing in these privately held businesses. And the valuations that they were giving these business owners were astronomical in comparison to what they've been historically, because it was the only other form of alternative investments that these private equity groups and venture caps could put their money into. Mm-hmm. So the other thing was business owners kind of got this sense of mortality and morbidity. And they said, after COVID, I don't know what tomorrow holds. I think it's time I want to take a step back. And the unfortunate side of it was a lot of those business owners had not done any planning up until that point. And then in an instant said, well, now it's time for me to get out. Had they done some of that planning in advance, they could have multiplied the value of the business and what they received for it by some 3 or 4 or 5 times what it actually was. So I think the change in the economic climate is definitely sparking more interest amongst business owners to evaluate and consider what their options are. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to exit now, or they even have to exit in a couple of years, but it is getting them to start having the conversation with advisors like myself and our team, and start to look at what possible outcomes or potentials might be.
I think it's also going to have an effect, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think now buyers have more room to negotiate also.
You're going to see a flood in the market of business owners who are looking to sell. There was EPI, the Exit Planning Institute, had recently done a state of owner readiness survey to find out what owners were thinking and where their heads were at in terms of exit planning and setting the business up in advance for whenever that exit possibly took place. And I think the numbers were, it was 250,000 somewhat businesses were going to consider selling. 50,000 of them would actually go to market, right? So about 5%. Of those 50,000, only 30,000 of them would wind up transacting. 16,000 of the 30,000 would wind up selling and giving concessions that they hadn't originally intended on. And of the 50,000 that actually transacted, I think it was 14,000 would actually go ahead and sell for the price that they had asked for. So that very tiny number, the small few, is really, as an exit planner, who we like to study, right? We like to look at not so much why something failed, but why something succeeded, and then take that and kind of not copy and paste or cookie cut, but try to replicate some of the good business practices that those successful companies implemented into the companies we work with as examples of what best in class really would be.
Do you think as we progress further into a recession, do you think that there'll be more buyers in need of actual financing as opposed to so many cash buyers that were in the market out there?
I think what you might wind up seeing is the private equity players and the venture cap and the entire private capital market pull back a little bit and pull their money back and kind of sit on the sideline until things kind of flatten out. But you may see the financial buyers, right? The private individuals who are looking to either acquire another company that's strategically aligned with them. They may come out of the woodworks. And if they don't have their own personal financing to back up a purchase or an acquisition or an M&A transaction, then the market for the private financing in private business acquisitions will definitely, you'll see a spike in that.
Awesome. Quick shouts out. We got some love from Carrie Buck and Christina Miller. Christina is my girlfriend, so I can say thank you and I love you too.
Thank you, Christina.
And Carrie is the ATM queen and a great mentor. So glad you're watching the show. Once again, just as a reminder, if you have any questions for Todd or myself, hopefully for Todd, so I don't have to answer them, you can drop them into the comments and Facebook, LinkedIn, or on YouTube. So a lot of stuff happening in the market. I think transitions are going to be coming a lot faster. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest question a lot of people have is what exactly is exit planning when it comes to the thought process of wanting to sell a business? Where do you start?
Right. And there's a common misconception around what exit planning is and what exit strategies are, right? And you hear people say, I'm an exit strategist versus I'm an exit planner. And it's similar to I'm a financial advisor, a financial planner versus an investment manager. So all exit planning really is executing on good business strategy, right? When you're planning for an exit, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's in the next year or 3 or 5 years. It means that you're operating your business in such a way where you will put the business in the top of the range in terms of valuations, right? You're operating as a best-in-class company when it comes to your particular industry. So all exit planning really means is you're carrying out smart, strategic, focused strategies, right? From an operational and cultural and social and financial standpoint to really position the company to be at the top of whatever the range of values is within that given industry.
Oh, that's awesome. We got one comment. Angelo Vecchiarelli says, Brian the Money Man. You still remember me from my banking days, and I could still put the money out there. So thanks, Angelo. Appreciate you watching. So exit planning, I guess, another question that comes up very often that I hear a lot is, does it pay to start doing some type of exit planning when maybe you're not looking to sell or transfer the business right now? At what point does it make sense to still plant?
And that's a great question. It goes right back to what we just discussed a minute ago, and it absolutely benefits not only the owner but the business itself, the key employees, and the entire group of employees. And if the owner is thinking about possibly transitioning or transferring the company to a family member, or what we call an IGX, an intergenerational transfer, doing the actual exit planning really just means that you're carrying out good business strategy on a day in, day out basis. And you just continue to relentlessly execute on that business strategy, right? If you're acting like a best in class company, and your profit margins are best in class, and your customer service is best in class, your culture within your company is best in class, when someone comes in to value your company, you're going to be valued as a best in class company within your industry, at the top of whatever your industry range is, and you're going to get the highest valuation for the company. Now, whether that means you want to sell the company or you just want to keep the company, right? If you're improving the value of the company, what that means is you're increasing not only your revenue, but you're also increasing your bottom line, your net profits, as well as your profit margins as a percentage of your sales. So by driving value, you're incorporating an improvement in profits, but also your cultural and structural intangibles and capital gain there.
I think sometimes, the simplest part of it is set a baseline, right? So you want to be able to get a valuation now, so at least you know what you're working with, and you can strive to meet a goal that you're looking for at some point down the road.
Yeah, when we work with business owners, we do something called a triggering event, right? And that triggering event it's a business enterprise valuation assessment, and it's correlated against that business owner's personal, financial, and business objectives, right? And part of it is we do a business attractiveness score, a business exit readiness score, and a financial performance or benchmarking score. And based on all those scores, it takes the business and places it in that range of values that I referenced to before. And it lets us know if the range of values for an industry is a 2x of net profits or EBITDA, right, on the low end, and best in class is trading at a 10x of EBITDA. And the current company that we just did a triggering event for fell into the range of a 6x. We know now that there are certain areas within that business that we can focus on and help the owners improve upon that will drive the value of the business by 4 times what its current valuation is. So it absolutely, like you said, to do an annual review, an annual checkup. We go to doctors annually. We see our accountants and our CPAs annually. If you're a privately owned business owner or a partner in a privately owned business, there's no reason why you shouldn't be having a valuation done at least every other year, just to keep a pulse on where the business is and where you are within your given industry.
Awesome. We have a great question that just came in from Dan Goldberg, a good friend of mine for a lot of years. We go back in banking a long time. Danny's working in the middle to corporate market in Chattanooga, Tennessee area.
Okay, good market.
He's saying, I'm seeing many businesses take on additional significant fixed costs via CapEx to handle pent-up demand now that supply side issues are starting to subside.
Yeah.
Are you assisting clients restructure, deleverage prior to exiting or recapping?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. So part of what the strategy entails, or the process entails, really is coming in and figuring out where not only can we improve efficiency, right? Not only within the business and fulfilling orders and turnaround time, but how can we minimize that turnaround time that you're referring to from the supply side, right? With a company like that you're referencing, we may look at their suppliers and what those relationships look like. And if those suppliers are taking too long to fulfill orders, are they overseas suppliers? Are they international? And if they are, is there a way that we can maybe find different suppliers who are stateside and domestic that can fulfill those same orders in a shorter amount of time, so that the company we're working with can actually fulfill their orders in a quicker turnaround time? But that's certainly a great question. Companies who are, hand-tied or handcuffed to dealing with international suppliers are facing a slew of issues right now, that if they can't find replacement suppliers, their only option is to expend money on CapEx and try to increase their capacity. But the turnaround time from the suppliers is a problem that everyone's facing.
Do you see that getting better in the near future, or what are you seeing out there?
I mean, it can't stay this bad forever, but I don't know if we've seen the worst of it. They say that once you see the worst, the best is just ahead. I don't know if we've seen the worst of it yet. I do think that there are going to be continued supply chain issues across basically all industries that are in the supply industry or that line of business. If you're relying on our international suppliers to ship goods to you, or materials or products for you to fulfill your orders, it's definitely time to take a seat and kind of evaluate who your supply relationships are with, and can you create or establish new relationships with domestic suppliers that may be able to help you alleviate that problem.
Awesome. We got a couple of thumbs up from Louis DiRamondo. He is a friend of mine, been an entrepreneur for many, many years in South Florida. And Brian Denton gives us a thumbs up as well. So what types of options are there for business owners who are looking to, quote unquote, sell their business?
Right. So, historically there's been two real paths for a business to take, right? And that's an inside track and an outside track. And with the inside track, you're really looking at an intergenerational transfer, right? Or what I referred to earlier as an IGX. You can make a sale to your partners. If you have other partners within the business, you can sell to management and have management buy-in. You could, in some instances, if the circumstances were right, do a corporate divestiture and have management take over a certain division of the business. That by no means is an exit, so to speak, because you're really only selling a division or a portion of the business. But your other option is an employee stock ownership plan, or an ESOP, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, and is sort of becoming more prevalent and heard of within the private business ownership. In terms of outside exit strategies, there's always the sale to private equity, right? Private equity is a good option for a company who may be able to align itself with another larger company who is willing to absorb or acquire them for a strategic purpose. You could sell to a financial buyer, which you heard me speak about before, which is simply an individual who's in the business of buying other businesses, right? There, you could do an asset sale, right? Although I don't find those to be the most efficient or most profitable ways of exiting. But when the assets within the business exceed what the business is actually generating, it may be something to consider. But I would certainly recommend either sitting down with a financial advisor, an attorney, and a tax advisor, a CPA, before you really consider doing an asset sale.
Do you think it's going to become more prevalent that more and more business owners are going to just simply want to take chips off the table instead of selling the whole shebang at this point?
It's not something that we don't entertain with business owners when we're working with them, right? Because if you implement this value acceleration methodology, right, and we can drive value and improve the overall value as well as the revenue and the profits of the company, the owner is deriving the benefit of the improved profit margins, the improved revenue, the increased value. A lot of owners are now looking to private equity to, just as you said, Brian, take some of their liquidity off the table. The benefit to going that route is you've now improved the value and sort of cashed out partially. The private equity group or whatever private equity firm or partner you may sell a portion of the business to is going to come in and do additional value enhancement as well. So it really kind of gives the business owner a second bite at the apple. So it's not a bad strategy. It sort of depends on the type of company, the position they're in, where they are in the life cycle, what their revenues are, their profits, their profit margins. So there's a lot that goes into it, but selling a portion of the company is not the worst idea, depending on the situation, because it might give the owner a chance to cash out a second time.
Exactly what I was thinking, because, if things, end up going a little bit on the other side for the next year or two, they could at least take something off the table now and then be able to potentially take more a couple of years down the road.
Yeah, and just to go back to what we spoke about earlier is, this whole concept of exit planning, right? It's a shift in paradigm to understanding that it's just good core business strategies, right? And if you implement those solid core business strategies and operate as if you're a best in class within your industry, it really sort of takes the timing the market and the guessing out of the equation. Because if you're operating day in, day out as a best in class company within whatever industry you're in, you're going to be valued at the highest possible multiple of either sales or revenue or EBITDA, no matter when you exit, right? So implementing this good business strategy eliminates the need or the concern of, is it the right time to exit, or what is the right exit? Because by doing that, you're maximizing the value of the company. It doesn't make a difference how you exit or when you exit.
Makes sense. So I think one of the questions that we probably hear more than any other question when it comes to selling a business, how do I know what my company's worth?
The sometimes $10 million question. I would forewarn business owners from going on sites like Biz Buy Sell or any of those free sites, because again, sometimes they will only quote what fair market value would be. The best thing to do is, I wouldn't ever tell anyone to give themselves an annual checkup from a medical perspective. So I wouldn't ever tell a business owner to figure out what their own valuation is, right? Unless it's something simple and straightforward where that your industry says it's a multiple of sales or a multiple of revenue, and you can calculate that on your own. I would absolutely employ you to go and seek the services of either a financial advisor or a business expert, a business specialist who has access to private capital market data and access to the private equity sales data, who can run accurate descriptive comps on your business and look at not just your revenue, but your EBITDA and your EBITDA as a percentage to your sale, and then compare you to other companies within the industry to get a very accurate and detailed valuation on what the business is worth.
Good, valuable information there. We do have another comment from Dan Goldberg. He says many private equity deals include rollover equity for the owners, which gives them the opportunity to help transition the management, increase the value, and have a second-grade payout over time.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's a great point, Tim.
And we do have a question from Pete Previtt. He's our general manager and investment banker. What's the best way for a business owner to prepare for the due diligence process?
M&A is always a fun portion of this. The best way that you can really have a company prepare for due diligence, or even preparing their CIM, which is nothing more than it's a confidential information memorandum. But the best thing you can do is just keep meticulous details, right? Keep meticulous records. Make sure that you have copies of all of your tax filings, your profit and loss statements, your balance sheets, any operational reports that you keep track of and that you keep metrics on. That's what the buyers of these private equity companies or any potential buyer is going to want to see, right? It's sort of like examining the engine of a car prior to buying it. It may look nice on the outside and the paint may look good and the wheels are shiny and everything looks right, but you got to pop the hood and really look at the engine and everything and all the components within it to make sure that the car is going to run properly. When you're getting a company ready, or gearing up as they call it, to go to market, whether it be to private equity or an M&A, it's really about your data lake and collecting an abundance of accurate, well-kept, detailed information to provide to whoever the potential buyer is, so that you answer any of the questions that they may have with respect to the purchase of the business.
Awesome. So this is always another great question that I hear a lot is when you're going through the process of wanting to sell your business, what's the one most important thing that stands out to that a business owner should be doing when they're planning?
What's the most important component? I'm going to say time, right? Because if you start the process early on, regardless of the situation or what may come up in the assessment or the triggering event or the process of improving the value of the business, if you give yourself enough time, enough leeway, enough of a runway to work with an exit planner or someone who's going to help the business transition, there isn't anything that's going to come up that you're not going to be able to properly address. If you try to take a 747 off on a 25-yard runway, it's going to be very hard. And likewise, if you try to exit your business in a 12 or 18-month period and you haven't done anything to address any exit strategy, any type of written plan, any succession, you're going to have a very hard time leaving that business without any of the planning done. So I think, although it may seem as a very general and broad answer, and although I know a lot of you would probably like a very detailed answer so that you could try to implement it tomorrow, the best thing you can do is give yourself enough time, work with someone who is familiar with the process and understands how to improve the value of a privately owned business, who's done it before, who has experience in that area. Give you and the advisor enough time to really accomplish what it is you're setting out to achieve. That's probably the number one thing that I can tell any business owner out there is if you give yourself enough time, there's nothing that you're not going to be able to address, and there's nothing you're not going to be able to fix, even if it's completely sideways.
That's good, valuable information too. But here's the $64,000 question. I go low. What is that time frame? When should people start to plan for the sale of the business?
That's a fair question. So in most cases, right, and historical data and past transactions have shown that business owners typically need a minimum of 3 to 5 years to really kind of get everything organized. And from a value enhancement and the value acceleration approach, you need a minimum of 3 years to see the results of this value acceleration methodology, right? If you're going to come in and work on improving the business, you have to give it time to really see the fruits of your labor, right? To start implementing new business practices, to change the culture within the company, to decentralize the owner and kind of diversify your customer base. I would say that the minimum amount of time you need is probably somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range. And that's not a hard number. You know, it's been done in a shorter period of time, but to really get the most out of whatever planning you're going to do with whoever you work with, I would say you need at least 3, 4, or 5 years.
Awesome. Well, I know that we covered a lot of ground, Todd. Is there anything that you wanted to add at this point that we haven't touched on?
No, I just want to reiterate that, the large majority of business owners out there, I think it's 83% of the ones who are looking to sell at some point haven't even put together a written exit plan or a succession plan or any kind of continuity plan. And if you're a business owner and you're thinking about what that next phase of your life might look like, what a potential exit could possibly be, the best thing you can do is go back to that time element that I had said and give yourself enough time to plan accordingly, right? And if it's a succession or a transfer to management rather, or a family transfer, have those conversations, right? Engage an exit planning advisor, start to have those conversations, engage your management, engage employees. Don't be afraid to sit down and say, this is what I'm thinking. I don't plan on working forever. I'd like to take a step back, or I'd like to maybe phase out. But have the conversations with the people who are involved in the business and in your life, so that when the time does come, it's seamless. Everyone's aware of what's going on and on the same page. I think the other really important thing is to align everybody in your life, right? And it's really aligning your family, aligning your transition team or your advisors, and aligning the people within the company, right? And letting them know, look, these are my plans. I want to make sure that you all are taken care of. but I'm thinking about exiting. I don't know when it might be, but I want to keep everything open and transparent so that you're aware of what's going on. Those conversations sometimes seem the hardest to have, but they actually are the most valuable in the end.
Awesome. Dan Goldberg said he agrees, and be transparent with all information. Buyers want to know what normalized EBITDA looks like.
Yes.
Anything on the horizon that can improve or potentially hurt value.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. Normalized and recasted EBITDA is extremely important, right? Everyone in the business world likes to play the write-off game, right? And it can get hairy if you get too excessive, right? A lot of companies have an enormous amount of discretionary expenses. And when a buyer comes in, it's not so much the discretionary expenses that they're looking at, it's how the owner is treating the expenses, right? If you have normal discretionary expenses, it's fine to normalize EBITDA and recast those numbers back in to figure out what your adjusted number would be. If a buyer sees an owner spending an exorbitant amount of money on cars and watches and country clubs and vacations, it's not that you can't adjust those numbers back into EBITDA. It's that they don't know what else the owner might be doing that they haven't picked up on. So normalized and adjusted recasted EBITDA numbers are extremely important, especially to the buyer, but you're only hurting yourself and the business by extracting as much money as possible, right? People like to use the business as a piggy bank, and it's actually, they think that they're getting the benefit from a tax perspective, but they're actually hurting themselves and the business in the long run.
Absolutely. Dan said he really enjoyed the session. Glad you were able to join us, Dan. Thanks for the questions. Pete, thank you for the question. And it was good to hear from you, Louie and Angelo and Brian Denton and a whole slew of others. And of course, my girlfriend, Christina. Got to throw that in there.
Thank you, Christina.
And this was episode number 45. If you want to be part of the next upcoming episodes, please feel free to reach out at pharusglobal.com. You'll find all my information there, and we'll be happy to put you on the schedule. Todd, this was great information. I'll be getting out copies of this, and they'll be on replay on YouTube for as long as we have the YouTube channel out there. It'll be on Facebook, LinkedIn for some time. You'll have the copies. If anybody else would like copies of it, let me know. You can reach Todd at Todd Bass at financialguide.com. Is that correct?
Yep.
And 516-682-3367 is the phone number to be able to reach Todd. He's happy to help anybody that's interested. Pete, thank you. Pete said it was very informative as well. Appreciate you being on. Todd, thank you very much. Any last comments?
Thank you for having me. Look forward to coming back.
Absolutely. We're going to be back.
I think I said enough. I spoke a whole lot tonight.
We're going to be back in, I believe, 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, I believe we have another one scheduled.
Okay. Awesome. So everybody tune in for that one. We'll get out the information shortly. Todd, have a great night, and have a great night, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks, everyone.